And here we go. I've had a couple of issues with having this present the right way. So forgive me if you end up having to see the margin on this. My hope is that it will be okay. So, all right. I think that we are good to go. It's so awesome to be back. I haven't done a webinar in a week. It kind of feels like, oh, wait a minute. Looks like I've hit slideshow and that advances things automatically. For me, we do not want that to happen. Okay, I think this is, yes, that's better. Okay, my apologies. I haven't done a webinar in a week and I feel like I haven't seen you all in a while. So I had a birthday over the weekend and I checked out and got up into the mountains, which was amazingly fun. Came back very refreshed. And here we are. I'm so excited to dive into today's topic. It kind of pulls together everything that we've been building toward with our launch with the Multi-Channel Marketing Academy. We started our free content 3 weeks back, and we've had a holiday summit. We've had a couple of different webinars that have really kind of all lined up to support where we're going with this webinar, which is essentially how trends in e-commerce are shaping the future of retail, specialty retail, and specialty brands specifically, but the channel of retail. And that obviously is a topic that has a little bit of crystal ball going on, but we also have a lot of data to share. And what we do very well at Channel Mastery and also Verde Brand Communications is we take the trends from the national news sphere and consumer behavior, we make them relevant to specialty brands. We are special snowflakes in these specialty markets that we serve. And that's why we take the time to really build this content out and bring in insights and resources and experts on our podcast to help explain the landscape and enable us all to take calculated risks as we go into this continual moving target, if you will, of COVID. And so today's webinar is another extension of that, and I truly hope it brings you value. I love to teach on this. And also we're launching our academy. Course starts on Monday, the 28th of September. I can't wait to see who from this webinar joins up. We have a great group in there already. And this is going to be a fantastic time to join the Academy. We are here to help you create your 2021 strategic plan and budget. Obviously, we can't do the whole year because there's just a lot of uncertainty on the horizon, but we are going to teach a budgeting and a strat planning process that will give you process and pressure testing and an ability to present and report into your leadership team on what the consumer is doing. We are training specialty brand leaders in the Academy to become the ultimate consumer advocates within their organizations. It is a critical role. It is the role that the marketing lead should have, and that should be at the C-suite leadership team within your organization. That is a very, very important part of why I do what I do here at Verde and Channel Mastery and the Academy, is to help our marketing leaders elevate themselves to have that role within their organizations. It is time, and we are super dedicated to that. Okay, I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Kristin Carpenter, and I'm the CEO and founder of Verde Brand Communications. We can be found at verdepr.com. I am also the founder of the Channel Mastery podcast, 3.5 years old. Award-winning podcast. Again, we take the trends from the national landscape and we help specialty brand and business leaders become multi-channel masters every single week, free of charge in our podcast. Check it out at channelmastery.com. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And then I'm also the creator of the Multi-Channel Marketing Academy, which beautifully brings together Verde Brand Communications' 2 decades of work serving specialty, as well as the Channel Mastery podcast. And we now have an actionable digital immersive course that we created specifically for specialty brand and business leaders to help basically understand and direct their brand through COVID, the recession, all of the social unrest that's happening all around us. There's so many levers and factors changing our consumer today, and our specialty brands are at the, I think, important opportunity zone of, I think, recruiting more of these consumers and enabling them to have a respite in our brand. Our brand becomes part of their identity. They join our brand as a community. That is such an incredible opportunity right now if you build your brand messaging, your product, your offering specifically for this target consumer. And that is what we teach you to do in the Academy. It is a framework you can use again and again, because that consumer is going to continue to change. So prior to starting Verde, which I started in my garage actually, prior to starting Verde, I, like many entrepreneurs, I was a journalist for 10 years. And super quick, I'm looking at the screen, and my teammate, Becca, I can actually see you as if you're a presenter. I don't know what's going on with that, but it's totally fine. But just know, for some reason, when you logged on, my video went away, and that's okay. But just let you know. And anyways, so Verde is as I said, almost near 20-year-old award-winning full-service active lifestyle brand communications agency. We focus on specialty brands. We enable them to create community connection and serve their target consumer no matter what their preferred channels are. We do this in such a way that evolves consistently through our partnership with our clients. We've taken that nimble approach that a lot of people have had to take on as part of what they do for a living in 2020. We've always had that for 20 years because it's the nature of what we do at Verde. Everything continues to change and shift, and we have always acted as kind of the guides for our clients, always watching the landscape for them, the ecosystem, and helping them intentionally build a brand experience through the channels that are preferred by their target consumers, and then create messaging strategies and storytelling that creates that emotional engagement that specialty has such a knack for. And we help retailers, we help brands, but we really, really focus on specialty. So we have, again, an incredible team, offices across the Intermountain West, and I just couldn't be more proud of our team and our client roster. Check us out at verdepr.com. And as I said, in 2017, we expanded and opened a Channel Mastery podcast. I, as a former journalist, could not find a resource for my incredible clients who were really battling with the quote retail apocalypse that hit the scene at that time. It was a retail apocalypse, but ultimately what it ended up being, as you well know, and what we're here to talk about today, is an evolution of the consumer that we can't stop. Okay, we can't stop this. They're being trained by marketplaces, big retail, very well-funded startups that have direct first, business models, incredible amounts of investment for headcount and data acquisition. It's very hard, we like to think or believe, to compete with that for the attention of our consumers. And it is hard, but we're here to offer you help with our Academy and also with Channel Mastery, our free content resource. But the Academy is starting on Monday. So obviously today's webinar is designed to give you a glimpse of what it is like to work with us within the Academy. You're going to learn some incredible trends today around consumer behavior, and you're going to see how we bring those into the curriculum, and you'll at the same time get a great dose of training today. But our goal today is to enable you to see what it's like to be a student within the Academy, and please know we are able to support and serve you on a much deeper level if you join us there. So, all right. So I wanted to just quickly let you know that we did actually launch the Academy in mid-May, and that was a crazy time because of COVID and also a lot of other reasons. So May of this year, we launched it. We moved our launch up, and I thought we were pretty ready to go because we've been working on the course for about a year, but obviously the consumer had been changing and was very much in a very pivotal time of change in May, June, and July. So we basically created and launched a beta course. We had 40 students. We got such great feedback. You can read their testimonials and see testimonials on our sales page, which I will be directing you to at the end of this. But please know that that was a great success. We were able to test our content. It truly did revolutionize several of our students' approaches to how they reach and engage consumers, and it gave them a great competitive advantage and also helped them truly reorganize and modernize their approach in terms of how they take their brand message and serve consumers with that and create community around their brand. So one of the student testimonials is from one of our star students, Mike Hatrip of Fisher Sports, and he was one of our first students, one of the first to sign up. And he basically said, this was an incredibly powerful Wow, look, I completely forgot to go through. Sorry about that. Here's the testimonial. All right, sorry about that. Mike, basically, you can read his testimonial here. He, as well as several others, have provided testimonials. 2 of them are video, and again, they're available on our sales page. So, all right, we are now going into e-commerce, the great disruptor, what you came here today for, the training. Obviously, we've all been experiencing e-commerce as the great disruptor for a very long time. We could even say up to 15 years. Brick and mortar retail has continued to account for the lion's share of all retail sales over that time prior to COVID. We're seeing fairly consistently 85 to 90% of all sales actually happened within brick and mortar prior to COVID, prior to retail, physical retail being shut down because of the pandemic, or greatly altered in terms of serving and how they serve. So just know that that is a very huge disruptor, but if you consider the fact that it's been 10 or 11% of the sales for most of our clients, prior to COVID, meaning e-commerce was not as much of like a factor, if you will, for a lot of our clients. It was definitely a factor, don't get me wrong, but it was not like what it is now. So if we had a brand, for example, that was 85% sales, final sales done within brick and mortar or wholesale or internet, wholesale, we now have probably, gosh, I would say half that because of the compromised nature from the pandemic of brick and mortar. E-commerce from a brand site, and also, e-commerce through, specialty e-commerce, if you will. Those 2 channels have grown precipitously, obviously, through the pandemic. So in 2019, for example, e-commerce generated, as I said, 16, 11, 10%, depending on the report you read. And as we go into where we are now, we saw a 10-year increase in e-commerce, according to the McKinsey report that came out about 3 weeks ago. E-commerce sales are now up 55% year over year for the first 7 months of 2020. Online sales are slated to surpass total online sales in 2019 by October 5th. So that's pretty incredible. A 10-year increase in e-commerce through COVID. And that is what they're calling the quickening. And that has brought a bunch of new challenges to our door. And we have been navigating through these challenges for the bulk of 2020. And here we are about to step into October of 2020, the 4th quarter of the year, which is traditionally, 4th quarter is one of the most promotional times that we have in our businesses and specialty. So we're at a very, very critical time as we go into kind of the final sprint for the end of the year, as well as a very, very important planning window from a strategic planning, growth, and budgeting standpoint within our brands. And that's why we chose to do another launch of the Academy this year, because this is such a challenging time. There is a lot of fear out there for sure, but there's also a lot of opportunity if you know how to read what your customer wants, what's resonating with your customer, and you have a framework that enables you to be nimble and shift channel strategies to meet them where they are, where they expect you to be. So today we are going to look at general e-commerce trends and the COVID-related boom. And there might be some captain obvious there, so I'll make sure that I protect your time by really only offering what is newsworthy and most relevant to you as a specialty leader, how these trends are shaping the future of specialty retail and what it means for retail today as a channel, and then some shorter and long-term solutions, shorter meaning through the end of the year, through holiday 2020, longer term meaning Q1, Q2 next year. Any expert who propagates that they can help you through 2021 calendar year is a little bit loco. In my opinion, there's too much change to really plan beyond that. And if you're looking at me like I have 4 heads right now, yes, I realize it's important to have a budget for the year. And in our budget training that we did last week, we definitely had a process and said, yes, you should do that. However, we do very much believe and practice, and our clients are adopting this too, that you take a more nimble approach to budgeting that essentially has some forecasts probably 3 to 4 different scenarios that you're dealing with on a quarter by quarter basis, depending on how COVID is being contained and how safe it is for people to gather again in public and transact as they would pre-COVID in person. So we have that as part of our framework and part of what we'll be training within the Academy. So regardless of where you are today, the future for all specialty retail and brands is because brands are obviously selling off their own websites. They also are specialty retailers at this point. Absolutely. And there will be a mix of channels going forward, just as there was prior to COVID, because that is what the consumer is trained to want. Amazon, Warby Parker, all of these larger direct first brands that have really taught our consumer to want, you know, incredible assortment, the lowest prices, the most convenient delivery. Unfortunately, our consumers, and we are our own consumers, are being trained to want more and more of that. And we're going to address those trends in terms of what we can do with specialty coming through COVID and through this recession today. And we'll also save some time for question and answers. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go through a little bit of the nerdville here. But this is super important information, and it might come in very handy for you as you participate in your leadership planning and budgeting meetings right now. Some of our clients are behind where they normally are with budget building because of all of the change. I'm anticipating a lot of you watching today might be as well. So keep in mind, this could be very good for presentations and meetings for you. And I'm going to be speaking to rounded numbers in the presentation here just to keep it efficient and easier for you to draw in. And then I wanted to first start, because I'm an ex-journalist, we need to define e-commerce saturation, as I refer to it here. That term is used in two ways. When you hear that e-commerce saturation is around 80%. That number is the percentage of all internet users who engage in online commerce. It covers anyone who buys stuff online, essentially. Some analysts suggest if we eliminate the 12 to 18-year-old age bracket of internet users from the statistic, the rate would be higher than 80%. While the tween and teenager age group, the Gen Z and younger, obviously consist of heavy internet users, and the Gen Z demographic is a huge contributor to the economy already. A lot of them don't have their own credit cards. That's why you're seeing Affirm and some of these other micro payment opportunities always be part of an e-commerce checkout process. You should have them as well, so that you can make sure that there's a least amount of friction possible for people when they're ready to buy from you online. The second e-commerce saturation definition is more relevant to 2020's e-commerce growth trends. So post-COVID, not post, I guess, in COVID. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, like aspirationally. So that's what I'll be referencing today. In this context, it's the percentage or ratio of sales that occur online versus brick and mortar. And this is from McKinsey. From 2009 to 2019, e-commerce saturation increased 9 points, from 5% to 14%. The rate of year-over-year growth was definitely picking up. And as of January 2020, a lot of analysts and retail journalists expected it to hit 22% saturation by 2023. Okay, that's where we left right before COVID really dug its heels into us. E-commerce saturation skyrocketed with COVID. They'd had to, obviously. In 3 months' time, 34% of all US retail sales were occurring online. You may have all seen headlines that we experienced a 10-year increase. Again, that McKinsey report talking about the quickening, and that's the figure we'll be referencing here. So what are the sectors that drove the increase? And as I talk about these sectors, if you're not specifically in one of these as a specialty brand leader, that does not discount you from having relevance or seeing meaning in what I'm about to share, because ultimately your consumer is being trained by these sectors. So it's very important to take note of this, because it ultimately is shaping who you're trying to serve too. So the boom from COVID related e-commerce sales definitely makes sense, because Captain Obvious, physical stores were closed. Stay-at-home and quarantine orders led to online shopping for basic necessities and discretionary purchases. Even for consumers that weren't mandated to stay home, so people who had essential jobs, etc., concern and caution around public spaces is vastly heightened, and it continues to be. As everybody knows, we're living through this together. We're also seeing that higher income consumers felt they had, quote, extra money to spend on, and they were spending that online because they weren't traveling, eating out, or doing other things that they used to, like spa services, medical treatments, etc. Outdoor and specialty sectors have done very well through the pandemic. The outdoor and bike boom are very real. Anybody who has tried to go camping has seen this or tried to buy a bike. We are in a time like no other in Verde's home markets of outdoor active lifestyle, endurance, beer, wine, and spirits, pet, etc. These are just absolutely, these specialty markets have had a huge boom. There is a health and wellness component to people getting outdoors and a fitness component. And then there's just a companionship and a life quality component with pet and also with outdoor. And we're seeing that cycling has really taken a utilitarian as well as health and wellness role in people's lives. And we are so hoping that that remains even after there is a vaccine at some point, or whatever our tipping point moment is around this pandemic. We are most certainly working hard within cycling to catch and keep this brand new and consumer, enable them to feel welcome as a long-term participant in the cycling world. So I just wanted to quickly make sure I captured everything here. So let's look at online food and beverage sales. Again, if you're not in this, it doesn't mean this isn't relevant to you, because this is showing how your consumer has been trained. The forecast went from 23.4% to 58.5% for food and beverage sales online. And then online sales predictions for health, personal care, and beauty went from 16.6% to 32.4%. By the end of 2020, e-commerce in the United States is predicted to be up 18% over 2019, generating $708 billion with a B brick and mortar sales. $708 billion in sales. Brick and mortar retail is predicted to be down 14% compared to 2019, still generating $4.2 trillion. Our source eMarketer is also willing to throw down a post-pandemic prediction around the longevity of the buying trend of essential goods. The majority of top 10 e-commerce retailers will increase their market share from 58.2% to 60.1% as consumers shift toward essential goods retailers that provide reliable delivery and click and collect, i.e. friction-free fulfillment. And how are these trends shaping specialty retail? Specialty retail obviously is brand and retail right now. Again, going back to 2017 and the retail apocalypse, journalists, it seems like they just love to report on the death of brick and mortar retail. And honestly, we haven't seen a lot of these Chicken Little headlines come to fruition. I don't subscribe to that line of thinking, especially for specialty retail, and that includes specialty brands, as I said. I definitely believe that the conclusions around trends in e-commerce are going to definitely, have an impact on consumers going back to retail. But just like prior to COVID, there will be a mix of channels. The one thing that we teach in the academy that we think is critical is you have to know exactly who it is you're serving, and what you offer is something that only your brand can offer. So not only do you need to know that niche or targeted approach, because hey, we're dealing with search engines. Every consumer is tethered to their browser today, right? Searching for what you do. It's more competitive than ever because every brand out there knows that the consumer is online and that the entire consumer decision journey is based digitally and online right now. So it's super crowded out there. Consumers are continuing to be trained by big retail, by marketplaces, etc. But what does that mean to how specialty retail, whether it's sold off of a brand's website or a retail entity actually conducting digital retail practices, what does that mean for us in specialty? E-commerce saturation is going to continue to grow. It will show significantly higher rates in both the short-term and the long-term evolution of our consumer and specialty. So when we speak about long-term, if you look at medical and community health aspect of the pandemic and when that's under control, so to speak, potentially with a vaccine, we'll see a moderated resurgence in brick and mortar shopping. We saw a demand generated throughout the year this year where people kind of got a little bit lackadaisical around being outdoors, gathering, etc., because the demand for that is there. We are wired as human beings to want to be in community and close to each other. We are going to see people go back to retail because it is a different experience than being tethered to their browsers. And I will say in the end of 2019, very beginning of 2020, the trends that we were working on at Channel Mastery and building a lot of panels and webinars around prior to COVID, really digging in its heels, were all based on adult consumers, not just teens and tweens and young 20-somethings, but adults had been spending 5.5 hours on their devices on average before COVID. And they were really, really, all trends pointed to people wanting to be at in-person events and engaging in person and buying through experiences at retail, whether that was in a store or an event with embedded retail. Those were some of the key trends we were banking on for 2020. All of that got stuffed down with COVID, but the demand is still there. That experience is still there to be had. And when people are able to go back and transact in public, you can bet they will go back and you'll see a surge in brick and mortar retail. And then it will level out and they will decide what from a convenience standpoint, what from a frictionless standpoint and a health and safety standpoint, and frankly, just a convenience standpoint that they were trained to have during the pandemic will marry with what they want to go have as an experience physically. Okay, so that's the channel mix that every brand has to figure out again and again as the consumer goes through this process. It is an ongoing thing that you have to stay on top of. And that's something we, as a concrete foundation to the Academy, is weekly consumer behavior trend analysis so that you get to know the pulse of your consumer. You lead that as an advocate within your organization. You are able to know when to change channels and strategic approaches so that you're able to stay in front of that consumer no matter what channel they prefer. As things go back to physical, it could be physical and digital. It'll be a mix of those. When you do your job well as a specialty marketer, your consumer will want to join your brand as a community, and your consumer won't see the channel. They don't care about the channel. They just want the experience. They want to join up with your brand when you're doing a great job aligning with them. That could be through aligning, through convenience or through ethical brand stance, etc. We cover all of this in the Academy in a short 8-week window. It's pretty cool. Okay, so again, there will be permanent channel shift toward e-commerce, and consumers will expect a higher level of sophistication and execution around experience from some service-oriented options like curbside pickups, same-day delivery, etc. They learned this from COVID restrictions. They're going to want more sophisticated approaches to it post-COVID and through the recovery from COVID. So keep that in mind. That's not going anywhere. And also keep in mind, Target, Walmart, Home Depot, Amazon, they're pouring millions of dollars right now into driving experiences of e-commerce sales as well as pickup within physical stores such as curbside, etc. They are continuing to train our consumer expectations. It is really important that we watch that every week through the end of 2020 to truly know where our consumer is going to net out and start 2021. That is exactly where we keep you disciplined and studying with us every single week through the next 8 weeks in the Academy. And consumers may not expect the same level of interplay between channels that, say, Nordstrom or Target or Warby Parker or Amazon have done, but they will expect some sort of seamless multiple channel engagement. I mean, you're a consumer and you are probably finding yourself in the same role. Okay. And then we also saw a statistic that I wanted to share that nearly 50% of consumers who have been buying in store have always started their purchase journey on, not always, but in the last 5 years, their purchase journey of discovery has started online, as well as their research process. But as we've gone through COVID, purchase validation and the actual shopping checkout process has firmly moved online, and there's trust around that. So the pandemic has certainly conditioned consumers to buy essential items and basics online, as well as have experiences around trust with other categories of shopping as well. All right. What does that mean for us as specialty retailers? So everyone has known for a long time that the rise of e-commerce has definitely changed the specialty playbook. And that's what we started our podcast for back in the middle of 2017 around the apocalypse. And many of us will put an annual plan or a budget in place. And then there's a list of shoulds around that. But like oftentimes we have to have that annual plan and budget in order to kind of move forward into a strategy. And this is going to be a very different end of the year, holiday season, and start to 2021 because of the pandemic and because the consumer continues to evolve. So you have your list of shoulds that's probably much longer now, but you also have a minimal amount of time to actually create a go forward plan and to create something you feel comfortable with in terms of a growth strategy, especially a budget around that. You have to have a solid e-commerce website, has to be mobile friendly, and you must have an active social media presence, again, because that discovery process has always been online. Now the nurturing sequence and the purchase validation is squarely online. So these are definitely things you have to have. And you should also have an SEO strategy as well as a paid traffic strategy in your digital, multi-channel marketing strategy. So shoulds are always prioritized with limited time and limited budget. And I know so many people who have been on the fence wanting to join the academy right now have said, this is my absolute busiest time of year. And it's even more busy because I have so much uncertainty and I'm having a tough time understanding budget parameters or getting forecasts from key stakeholders, etc. I have to say, what happens if you put that in front of a decision to join a solution like the Academy with a peer of like-minded, motivated marketing leaders who are all intent on solving this puzzle through collaboration and through our curriculum? I guarantee you will not be in the place you want to be in 3 to 6 months if you choose to take that approach. If you choose to just take what you have and try and work with it to hit this moving target, this most important North Star, your target consumer. Now is the time to actually step back and make the time. 3 to 5 hours a week is what we're saying you're probably going to need to invest. 4 if you're very efficient. If you want to engage more with your community and your new network, possibly 5. But it couldn't be a more important time. And consider it time that you will be working on your budgeting, your strategic planning, which you would be doing anyway. You just have a new framework with which to do it with the Academy. So the inescapable truth from the growth of e-commerce, whether we're talking short or long term, is the fact that it's based on consumer behavior, okay? That is the priority that I'm talking about. That is why this is a must and not a should. And what I just mentioned with e-commerce, mobile friendly, active social media, social SEO strategy, paid traffic, those are musts. Those are things that we address in the first 2 modules of the Academy. Because this is your ultimate new front door. And this is how you are going to not only be discovered by your target consumer during a very congested time, but how you're going to enroll them emotionally in your brand. And that couldn't be more important during this crazy promotional window that we're in, otherwise known as Q4. You need to be investing in e-commerce channels, and as well as all of your online digital channels. Not all of them, actually, I take that back. The ones that are most relevant to your target consumer right now. And that's what we deduce in the first module when we really focus in on your niche and how you're differentiated to exactly who it is you're serving. So we all continue to navigate this pandemic. And we have to understand how to reach, engage, convert, and sell to our target consumer. And honestly, what we do with specialty brands is we evolve the consumer through what we offer in our brand. And this is another very important part of what we offer in our training in the academy, because we essentially are creating we're helping you create strong emotional engagement with that end consumer. And that is the difference between keeping a customer or losing a customer. And as we know, the cost for customer acquisition goes up when it's very, very congested online, and it becomes more and more difficult to keep them in our sphere, our community, if they're not emotionally engaged. That becomes a foundational part of everything we do week by week in the academy. Okay, so I want to give you some actionable strategies in this training, separate from the academy, that will enable you to manage holiday 2020. And I also want to remind you that we did a full holiday summit on this in our very first week of promotions 2 weeks ago. You can find all of that at verdepr.com/blog, as well as on our sales page for the academy. And I'll give you those links here in a moment. But managing holiday, I wanted to give you some of the key bullets. It's obviously too late to develop an e-commerce platform or really kind of start from the beginning with holiday sales, but it's most certainly not too late to leverage or kickstart other digital properties and channels as a way to get a competitive edge, and again, to keep and convert and nurture that consumer that you've worked either so hard to enroll in your brand, or that you have the opportunity to bring more of into your brand because of the boom in many, many specialty markets. So what you can do right now is you can use your digital channels, such as website, email, social media, to not only promote products, but also promote safety measures and shopping conveniences that you're implementing. Keep in mind, if you're not a brick and mortar retailer, you can use these same digital channels to convey how your brand is helping society or being a vehicle for positive change through the recession, through this incredible era of social impact that we're going through. So using your channels as a way to communicate your brand story and what you're doing to facilitate change and showing the action you're taking, hugely important and a big, big thing for engagement and nurturing right now. Ask your web developer to post a message on your homepage and change that message weekly depending on how you're making your customers' lives better that week, right? It could be a sale, a promotion, a safety concern, a way that you're giving back your operating hours, etc. Every little bit of this will help with your search engine visibility. And also, if you aren't in a position to hire an SEO specialist at this time, you just need to ask yourself, how would I search for this? You're also a consumer that's tethered to his or her browser right now. Another example would be to keep you safe during the holiday season. We're offering curbside. That's all fine and good, but go one step further as a specialty brand. Get in the head and heart of your consumer and understand what is it that they're missing this year. They're not able to take their family ski trip, or they're not able to get together as a family. They're looking to have to do a Zoom holiday dinner. That's not ideal. So what can you do as their favorite, specialty brand respite, like their escape? What can you do to make their experience better, right? And you can really tap into your team to make this super creative. This is what specialty is so good at. And I really, really want to encourage everybody to get super creative in terms of how you can serve your consumer at this time to enable them to just have a better end of their own year and a better holiday season themselves. And also keep in mind, your consumer is going to be just overwhelmed with holiday promotions from so many major brands right now. So keep that in mind as you're advertising your own specials and promotions and thinking about creative ways to get in front of your audience. You can also activate your email list. If you haven't been doing that, now is a great time to warm it up at the end of September. Warm up your email list, and we teach how to do that in the academy. And you can remind your community of your brand or your retail store or stores why they love shopping with you and why you are their favorite brand. That's ultimately what a nurture sequence in an email marketing program is supposed to do, is remind your target consumer why you're their favorite place to be or their favorite brand to wear proudly. And then really, really consider exceptional customer service. What does that look like in an era when you can't have people in your store? Small Business Saturday, or if your town has a local Noel night or holiday shopping evening, what can you provide that is a hybrid of virtual and physical, or possibly even a physical mailing of some kind? There's a lot of creative ideation that you can tap into around that, especially with cross-promotional partners, whether they are cross-town non-competitive businesses, or perhaps brands that are very complementary, serve exactly the same consumer that you can offer a holiday experience to. Get creative and make some sort of a contest happen within your organization to consistently come up with these ways to engage your consumer in a way that's memorable and super personalized. So longer term tips and takeaways, and some of these are tied into exactly what we teach and train in the Academy, and that's very much intentional because we pressure tested our own curriculum in our beta launch earlier this year, and now we have taken what worked exceptionally well and put it against the backdrop of the fourth quarter of the year during a crazy year, i.e. 2020, when consumer behavior has just been astronomically changed. We have now updated all of our content and have a fantastic program tailor-made for specialty brand leaders to come through looking like champs, right? You're really tasked with a lot of responsibility. Create a growth plan, spend money. What are the KPI? What's the ROI on such a moving target? That's what we're here to help you with. So these long-term tips tie perfectly into that. As I said before, as we get through some kind of vaccine and things return where people can go to brick and mortar more with freedom, right? E-commerce saturation will probably not take a huge shift in terms of a downturn. I think that the viability of it is completely tied to convenience and trust, which was strongly established during COVID. You can bank on consumers wanting multiple channels, as we talked about before. And I think that with COVID restricting that now, it's almost like a partial blessing, okay, for our specialty businesses. We are now forced to create such a stronger, clearer digital channel experience for just the right consumer. We have to be very disciplined in that way to be successful. And while we're doing that through COVID and evolving that through COVID and through the end of the year and Q1 of next year, we also have to plan for multiple channels as we continue to reach and nurture and read our end consumers as they're evolving around what we're doing as a specialty brand. And that is so important because ultimately we stay tethered to that. We're reading the data, we have their pulse, we're taking them through the best we can 2020, but then we're also understanding what 2021 looks like. And that is how we've created our budget planning and strategic planning process that we share with you in the Academy. It all starts Monday of next week. Super excited. So these are things that are really, really important. As I've said several times, taking a step back, even if you've done this work just before 2020, where you were like, this is my ideal consumer, this is the brand profile of or the consumer profile that I'm going after, these 3 or 5 or whatever, you need to revisit that because all of us have changed so much through this pandemic. You also absolutely have to tie a channel journey process, so a consumer decision journey that is digitally based. That is the next step. You have to understand who you're serving and what their preferred channels are. Absolutely. You can do an audit on what you have now, but you also can take what you've learned from who you're serving and how only your brand can serve that person and adjust your strategy with your channels. We do teach a full auditing process in the Academy as well for your channels. And we encourage people to creatively spruce them up and diligently edit those channels as it pertains to your evolving end consumer, your avatar. Another thing that you need to have going through this to truly win and be positioned well long-term, so into 2021, is a dashboard, frankly. I think that understanding a website and like how your consumer is coming into your site, how much time they're spending looking at product, etc., is very important. But as you venture deeper into e-commerce and into a digital consumer strategy, you have to actually get deeper than that even. And that means looking at as much data as you can on a daily basis, frankly. And that's something that we teach you how to do in the academy. And we actually give you a template on how to report that to your leadership team. And again, you're training them to trust you as that consumer advocate, which should boost your value in their eyes 100,000%, in my opinion. This is a gold standard that any specialty brand that is going to I think embrace the opportunity of this time of change will have. And that is a close pulse using a consumer dashboard that we teach you how to make in the academy. You have to monitor your metrics. You have to know where your consumer is. And historically, we've seen this in sales, and we've had a little bit of a set and forget mindset around that in terms of how we analyze sales. Now the gold is really in the journey. So that's what we teach. Analytics are the second best way to evaluate efforts and make changes. The number one way is understanding how your consumer is engaging with your content. Okay, that is the front door salesperson is your branded content. And that is ultimately what we teach a narrative position around in terms of like making it something that is emotive and truly enables a consumer to join up with your brand emotionally. So yes, we also teach a consumer decision journey opportunity as well in terms of like a template for that, as well as an 1.5-hour training on that. And then we go into content planning. As I said, that's your most important salesperson. And ultimately, we teach and train messaging. We teach psychological components of copy. We definitely get into optimization and SEO as well. So we call it an editorial calendar, just probably from my editorial past. But ultimately, a brand is a publisher today, whether you're a retail brand or a brand that creates product or services or offerings, and you have to act like a publisher. So that's why we call it an editorial planning process. And it frames our rolling launch approach that helps to nurture and grow your audience every single month. KPI should be audience growth and engagement going forward. That is the pond that your brand will fish in. Okay. In the past, we've relied on other channels to get our brand out there and engage our audience and encourage sales, whether that's through, hey, you're in this great store that serves this consumer, or we're able to offer them something online through content. Now we have to create a perfect mix exactly for our target consumer that brings them through a journey. And a lot of that will be content. And we teach, how to do that, the mix of video versus written word and imagery and everything that's happening from a trend standpoint in terms of how consumers are being trained today. Honestly, this is a training like no other. I have to also say, one of the most important things you can do is be consistent and be authentic. That is a very overused word, but the more you know exactly who you're serving, the more authentic you are. And one of the most important things also is understanding how your brand can align ethically with your target consumer. And that's something we teach a strategy around in the academy as well. And it's really important to engage your workforce in that process to make it authentic and to make it real. Okay, that was a lot. As I kind of head around third, headed to home here, I want to just remind everybody, one of the most important facets of launching the academy is the fact that the marketing leader within a specialty brand can feel alone often. A lot of people say CEOs are kind of flying Han Solo. I feel like so many of the marketing leaders we've served over the 20 years I've had an agency that has focused on specialty brands, they are literally like receiving everything that says marketing, every email, everything that comes in the mail, everything you can imagine, conference invitations, all of that. They're getting everything that says marketing. That is a buckshot approach. That is a leadership team that does not understand that you as a marketing leader are the advocate of the end consumer. If they understand this is our consumer, this is exactly how we serve them, these are their preferred channels, these are our campaigns that we're going to be going out with every single month to stay in front of them and stay relevant, and they understand that, you're going to stop becoming this like catch-all for all things marketing, and you're going to be elevated and treated as the advocate for the consumer. A business does not exist today if they are not consumer-centric. And so many specialty brands, because they are not resourced with headcount, data, or budget, like Target, Nordstrom, etc., they are not set up to be consumer-centric. They have survived or gotten to a certain point because they have been serving a channel of distribution, i.e. a wholesale retailer or Facebook ads, right? As a direct first brand, like they built communities through paid traffic or paid social media placement. Today, you have to obviously use those channels. You have to elevate your game to be focused on the consumer. That is what comes first. So if you look at it through that lens, and that's who we're serving in our businesses, how can we not have a consumer advocate on the C-suite level within every organization? My mission is to take that specialty brand leader and elevate them to that, because the business needs it. Businesses today and brands today are making change happen. The world needs that, okay? That is how much responsibility and how much opportunity a specialty brand can have if they take this approach and if they are disciplined to serving their consumer. And that is why we created the Academy. And again, I just want to focus again on the fact that the framework that we teach is something that can be used as your business continues to evolve to be remarkable to an evolving consumer that you're serving. So it seems daunting, but as we keep an eye on that North Star, we'll understand e-commerce, we'll understand budgeting and strategic planning so much better, and we will plan for change. Nothing can be set and forget, and nothing can be rigid anymore. It has to be based on the evolution of the consumer. That's requiring a lot of organizational change. That's very difficult to have right now. But when everybody takes the personalization out of the change and makes it focused on the consumer, that's when the magic happens. And ultimately, that's the responsibility that a specialty marketing leader can have when they become the proven, trusted resource of consumer information within their organization. And that is exactly what we're trying to create in terms of change agents in our marketing leads that we serve in the Academy. This is the framework. This is all available on our sales page as well. You can go to verdepr.com/marketing-course and learn more about it. So I don't need to get into granular detail on this, but I wanted to let you see exactly what we train here and how helpful it can be as you wrap up 2020 as strongly as possible and head into 2021 with a plan and a pressure-tested budget process. These are the platinum and gold packages that we're offering. And basically, if you want more one-on-one with me, that's what the higher price point is. And I happen to love coaching and training and teaching. So I hope most of you sign up for that because it's my favorite thing to do. But we also have a gold package available that is, really more something that people who have maybe a little bit more limited time still get great benefit. They just don't have the individual coaching sessions with me personally. And we're also extending a special offer to everybody on the webinar today. Last chance 95. Use that code at checkout for $95 off either package, which is really good. There's another, what we have down here is a very long URL for our sales page, but you can also find that by heading over to the one I just gave you, verdepr.com/marketing-course, if that's easier for you to remember. All right, that pretty much does it for my presentation today. I'm going to go ahead and see if there's any questions and answers. I have a few commonly asked questions that I can propose if there haven't been any questions and answers added here. So I can go ahead and do that if you want. Again, I think there are two main questions that we get with the Academy. One is time and one is budget, okay? Many of the people that we serve within the Academy in our first cohort and also what we're seeing now in our signups are people who are working within a brand. So it's very interesting because we're helping the B2B marketer reach the consumer. And they need to oftentimes tap training budget for that. With COVID, there's a chance that your organization might have it really used a lot of their training budget if they had a lot of staff furloughed and they were training those staff. But there's also a chance that that isn't the case, and maybe they haven't tapped the training budget. So either way, every business is in a different position with this. But I just want to ask that everybody, realizes we do have payment plans. We have 2 levels of investment here, and what you're going to learn is going to pay off so huge for your organization in terms of making it more consumer centric and creating difficult change. There will be great process and a foundation put in place to help the organization change from being dependent on serving the actual point of distribution channels to serving the specialty consumer. That's priceless. It truly is, in terms of evolving a company, getting sales and marketing out of competition and putting them in alignment around serving this consumer. It is absolutely priceless. So my hope is that you'll see that our investment is actually very, very attainable. We actually saw a couple different courses online from a couple different MBA programs from very reputable universities that are twice or more as much of an investment as ours, without the market fluency and without the focus on specialty. So this is truly a one-of-a-kind program. I'm in there teaching every week, no matter which package you buy. If you buy the one that's more expensive, you get more of my time. That's basically how it works. But there is no program like this available. And you're taking our 20 years of experience at Verde and our near 4 years of experience creating content around channel mastery to create multi-channel marketing bosses, basically. And that's what you're getting in the academy. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew, yes, budget and tapping into training budgets might be a challenge, but the best question you could ask the person who controls those budgets is, what is the cost of not doing this? Where am I going to be in 3 months if we don't start becoming completely, aligned and in service of our target consumer? What are we going to do if we don't update our consumer profile so that we know how to run our sales, our content, our promotions, and create products and experiences for that person? Because it is becoming that finite in terms of focus as the consumer will continue to be looking online to discover and, understand purchase validation around what they're buying from specialty brands. It's that simple. And so another question that we have, top question, is the time commitment. That was definitely the case earlier this year because people in specialty, if you were furloughed, you might have time, but the people who were actually still in-house working at their brands, it was a crazy time, and they were not, they were also at the same place you might be, like thinking they didn't have time. It actually became something that was manageable for them, and they were able to integrate work they already had to do during that time. So keep in mind that while we're talking about a 3 to 5 hour commitment, and it could be more if you have more time, or it could be closer to 3 if you don't, you are going to actually be accomplishing tasks that you would have to do anyway during Q4 of 2020, such as strategic planning and budgeting, pressure testing, understanding new KPI, building new systems around serving a more targeted avatar, etc. So these are things that you already would have to do. And we make it possible for you to modernize your approach to that in the academy. And then the other thing that is a very commonly asked question is, how much interaction and networking do you get to do with the other people in the academy? And that was one of the things that we learned through our beta launch in the middle of the year of 2020. People really wanted that. And we introduced that closer to the end of the academy, and we're now going to bring it in at the very beginning. That's really, really important, and something that we know our students want. They want to expand, who they get to work with and connect with. And that's ultimately something that we really have highlighted in our new program. So those are the 3 main questions. And I think that that's all that we have at this point. Please feel free to reach out to me My email is kc@verdepr.com, and I'm happy to talk with you if you are considering joining the Academy. I believe so strongly in this product. It was pretty scary for us to launch it in May. We didn't really know what was happening, like in terms of would people really buy this and need this. And now that I've brought a cohort through it and seen the transformation within the cohort, I am now the single biggest proponent of this program. I am so proud of it, and I know that it can create change for you. I know you'll be connected with an incredible group of people, and I hope that you'll join us. Thank you so much for joining me here today. We have another webinar tomorrow around the consumer journey and how you can integrate your specialty brand into a consumer journey. Please join us for that, and I will see you then. Thank you so much.